Alright, so we have Charles Rosa versus Justin Jaynes. So both these guys aren't in the best form at the moment. Charles Rosa alternating wins and losses in the UFC. So, if that stays true, then I guess he's due for a win. But yeah, Justin Jaynes, he might also be due for a win because he's had 3 losses in a row. He's had a very tough schedule though. He's definitely fighting for his job in this situation here. But yeah, he's had a pretty tough schedule. For Justin Jaynes, likes to get his work done early. Last 8 fights have ended inside the distance. 8 fights, 6 of them have ended inside round 1. Charles Rosa has a 2-inch height advantage and a 1.5-inch reach advantage, so we'll see if he can use that here in the stand-up. So Charles Rosa comes in mostly as a southpaw, likes to switch stance occasionally. When he's in southpaw, he's using that karate stance, looking for a straight left, side kicks. When he's in orthodox, he's more of a Muay Thai boxing style, I think. But yeah, so just switches it up a little bit. And for Justin Jaynes, everything's with power. 90% of the time, what he's throwing is the 2-3 or the 3-2. He doesn't throw any feints. When he's close in distance, he's going to put his head down and he's going to throw. And when he's not throwing and when he's not blitzing in, he's just taking a rest at distance, basically, when he throws those combinations. Takes a lot of energy, so he takes some rest and he doesn't have too much of an outside game. But yeah, it is what it is. For Justin Jaynes, what he's looking for is the counter 2 when the opponent closes the distance, but mostly what he's looking for is when he's blitzing in, he'll look to throw the 2, switch stance, and then throw the overhand left. So he always wants to throw with his power hand, and when he switches stance to southpaw as he's closing distance, his left hand is going to be his power hand, so that's when he throws the overhand left. So, you just got to watch for those 2-3s in the pocket and the 3-2s in the pocket. And that 3 can be interchangeable with an overhand left. And Charles Rosa, he's quite vulnerable on the back foot. He'll reach for his opponent, has his hands away from his chin when he's retreating. So if you get him on the back foot and you start throwing combinations, you're probably going to land on his chin clean. And for Justin Jaynes at distance, as I said before, it doesn't really do too much, but if you just kind of put it on him, he'll just look to duck and then cover up to defend himself. He doesn't really look for too many counters or utilize much head movement. It's mostly just, ducking, covering up, and that's why he's so prone to those straight knees, which Gavin Tucker and Benitez caught him with. Benitez finished him with, so yeah. And also, it keeps the guard up, so I think Benitez threw it to the body, and then he finished him from there. In the grappling department, so Charles Rosa is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has a nice armbar off bottom, but I think he's too comfortable off his back, in my opinion. I think he trains too much pure Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I think he's gotten way too comfortable off his backside, and he's pretty happy staying there for 15 minutes, But how these guys win fights, so for Charles Rosa, he's, quite dangerous off his back, unless he's got a much better top player on top of him, such as Bryce Mitchell or Derek Minner, so, he can be exploited that way. And for Justin Jaynes, probably in round 1 is how he wins. He's most explosive, throws most of his heat in round 1. 75% of his 16 wins have come in the first round, so it tells you all about that. And he does have a fair amount of power when he does connect, but he does gas after 1.5 rounds. He doesn't have a very energy efficient style at all. And I would say Charles Rosa, he does have the cardio advantage here. But Charles Rosa, he doesn't have the best takedown defense. And then, as I said before, when he faces good top players, he tends to lose, tends to get dominated on top. And he's also just very hittable on the feet. Path to victory for these two. So for Justin Jaynes, look to pressure him on the feet and then make him throw something, and then you can, look for your counters from there. But I think you'd have more success in this fight if you went with a counter-heavy approach. It would also be much more energy efficient. You might preserve your stamina and your cardio for a little bit longer, but also I think he's open for counters, just the way he strikes. And for Charles Rosa, look for body kicks, teeps to the body at distance. Just keep touching him at distance. Keep scoring points as he's looking for those rest periods after his bursts of energy. Also, mix in your wrestling. I know you haven't used it in a while in the UFC, but it's the path of least resistance here, in my opinion. How I see the fight going, so Jaynes is dangerous in round 1, and Rosa can be fairly reckless on the feet. If Jaynes is going to win, I think it's going to be in round 1 the majority of the time. The fight probably comes down to cardio though, so I do give the advantage to Rosa. If he can just keep the volume on Jaynes, and while Jaynes is catching his breathers, as we talked about before, then I think he'll win rounds 2 and 3 for sure. I think Rosa's distance management is good enough that he won't get killed in round 1, but, it's kind of sketchy. So I do believe Rosa will get it done. He'll win rounds 2 and 3. and I think he'll get the victory by decision. Okay, let's have a look at the betting lines. Alright, so the prediction is Rosa by decision. I think he wins 55 to 60% of the time. The other chunk of the time, I do think Justin Jaynes kills him in round 1. So, yeah, Justin Jaynes, if I can get Justin Jaynes in round 1 at plus 400 or $5, I'd probably put a tiny bit on that. Seems pretty fun, and I think that's his win condition, honestly. And maybe even a little bit on the draw, just like a bit of beer money. Because I do think maybe a 10-8 in round 3 for Charles Rosa, maybe a 10-8 in round 1 for Justin Jaynes. So yeah, I think the draw could be fun there. Obviously not expecting it to hit at a very high clip, but I think there's a tiny bit of value on it.